Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen. A very, very warm welcome to you. I'm very pleased. It's an honor and a pleasure to open this interview between Dr. Peter Reuss, German ambassador to UNESCO, and me, educational associate of the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation. Dear Peter, a very, very warm welcome to you. I'm very, very thankful that you are here, that you spend some time for this interview on the topic of the human rights, science and education. And I'm also thankful that you will reply to the questions of the ladies and gentlemen in the chat after our talk. 19 years ago, I met you for the very first time at an event on the Wilhelm Hausenstein Society. Wilhelm Hausenstein, who is for both of us, for you and for me, a very remarkable, important personality. He was a cultural historian, he was an art critic, an art writer, a diplomat, the first German ambassador after the Second World War for France. And for me, of course, it's always remarkable because Wilhelm Hausenstein devoted himself intensively to the Franco-German friendship after the Second World War. Our Wilhelm Hausenstein Society, for example, gives all the time lectures or offers lectures on this important writer. This year, for example, we will speak about the writer's love for France in our next symposium, in our next conference. Wolfgang Böck, our first chairman of the Wilhelm Society, is very thankful that we will realize on the topic of German-France friendship this next conference, this next symposium. Dear Peter, for some time now, I've been involved with the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation, which has also been represented in Switzerland since 2015 and is particularly concerned with the human rights for all people, but also with teaching human rights in schools and the involvement of the so-called youth ambassadors. And this is especially for these youth ambassadors that I've been working since last year, as we have visited and will visit exhibitions on specific topics of equality, respect for human rights and their abuse. I took on this task because of my work as a scientific director in the Rosengart collection in Lucerne and as an art historian in the Kunsthaus Zurich and the Kunstmuseum Basel, the oldest museum collection of the world. Because in all these three museums, I deal in particular with pupils and students of different ages and the teaching of different topics in art with a holistic approach, like our Wilhelm Hausenstein. Works of art have always been an expression of a time, of a state of mind. And especially in this context, I remember the fascination of the youth ambassadors who used to be with me in the Kunsthaus in Zurich, seeing this exhibit, Remembering the Future of Kadratyan, a French-Algerian artist. And I brought a little bit of materials with me just to show our ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can see this as well. This is La Mer Morte. It was an installation of 2015. And Kadratyan, as a French-Algerian artist, in this installation, Kunsthaus Zurich, deal with the idea of all those refugees who lost their life, fleeing through the Mediterranean Sea. Another artist, the Afro-American artist Kara Walker, A Black Hole is Everything a Star Longs to Be, the current exhibition in the Museum of Fine Arts in Basel. She is represented for the very first time with 600 works on paper as an archive, as a biography of her life. And this is remarkable and a very expressive exhibition. We need some time to go through. We need to expect a little bit. This is the immense catalogue which I wrote. She is dealing with topics of, the abuse of human rights. She speaks about sexuality, about violence, about slavery. This is her main topic, and she became famous because of her cutouts. And very first time you're going to see those cutouts, you think it's quite interesting. The more you approach, the more time you investigate, you are quite shocked about those motives. Another artist which I always have in mind, is Dan Vo, the Danish Vietnamese artist, We the People, a work that he realized in 2010 and 2013. And I show you, dear Peter, and also the ladies and gentlemen, the red foot of the Statue of Liberty, symbol of freedom, symbol of all the immigrants coming into this harbor of New York. And especially because of this Dan Vo, who was at the age of 4 already involved with this horrible situation. He and his family had the chance to be rescued. And with this exhibition, let's say with his work, We the People, he remembers, of course, the Statue of Liberty. You remember that, dear Peter, that it was a gift from the French people, if I'm not wrong, to the American people in 1886, and remembering us, of course, with a torch, this enlightening of the freedom. Now, which I think is remarkable, is your biography, and I would like to introduce a little bit, Peter, speaking about your career. So Peter Royce is a German diplomat. He has been ambassador to UNESCO since September 2019. In 1994, he joined the Foreign Service and completed the preparatory service for the Senior Foreign Service until 1996. Afterwards, he first worked in the European Department of the Federal Foreign Office, then was employed at the German Embassy in Ankara from 1998 to 2001, and subsequently became personal advisor to the Federal Government Commissioner for Human Rights Policy and Humanitarian Aid at the Federal Foreign Office. Subsequent posts included the General Secretariat of the European Commission in Brussels, the German Bundestag, Foreign Policy Officer 2006 to 2010, and the Federal Ministry of Transport, Building and Urban Affairs, where he was head of division from 2010 to 2013. In 2010, Peter, you were transferred to the German Embassy in Paris as Minister Counselor and head of the Economic and Financial Section, returned to the Federal Foreign Office in 2017 as head of the Chinese section, and you have been ambassador at the permanent mission to UNESCO in Paris since September 2019. Congratulations for all this, what you have done, and I'm really very, very impressed. The education of young people, dear Peter, around the world is a great good and a very important prerequisite for a hopeful democratic future. As an art historian and especially a museum educator, I've been working for many years to bring human rights issues closer to the students and pupils from first grade to high school in a holistic way. More recently, equality for women, be it in a collection or of a museum, or be it especially in exhibition, which is right now to be seen in Paris and that I've seen just recently. And I'm very thankful and grateful to have seen that. Now, we already heard about the equality, and I would like to remember one exhibition that I've seen in the Museum of Fine Arts in Basel, Sophie Teuber, Living Abstraction, which was fascinated, and she was inscribed with this exhibition in the canon of all the pioneers of abstract art. Dialogues and workshops, consisting of a guided tour and a creative part, is for me very important to work with the students and the pupils. With a specific task on the theme, to draw with them, to paint with them, to develop, to give film contributions, or to create collages, as we say them. One of those several possibilities that we have. Art can be a podium in which topics on freedom of expression, on protection from torture, discrimination, and arbitrary states interference. The defined rights included the right to education, work, healthcare, cultural right, and the freedom of speech and opinion, on collective participation, on a history as a whole, very important topic, on religious freedom, where we our negotiation, those things. I give these kinds of tours for the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation, and especially this summer, the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation developed workshops which will be given for in Lucerne on the theme of the art of activism, which included lectures and photo exhibitions. That brings me right now to a very important question, and you already told me that you would like to adjust something. The UNESCO is particularly committed to the education and training of students around the world. So my first question will be, what opportunities do you see in the education of students?
Dear Kerstin, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for this kind invitation to this interview for the Robert Kennedy Foundation. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. And I want to salute all the people behind the screens. And I want to start by just saying a few words about UNESCO, what I'm doing and what states do with UNESCO. UNESCO is the United Nations Organizations for Education, Science, Culture, and Information and Communication. The UNESCO was founded after the Second World War, just like the United Nations Organization in New York, but with a more positivistic approach, if I may say so. The United Nations was founded in San Francisco and want to prevent wars and want to even go to war to prevent to fight against injustice in some situations. And you all know the first incident was the war in Korea. And then we had many other mandates on the Article 7, which allows to go to war. The approach from UNESCO is completely different. From the same analysis of the United Nations, they said war is an idea of mankind. It starts in the head of man, and we would say today women. And so if we want to do something for the peace and security, we have to start in the head of men and women as well. You may say this is merely a naive approach, but if you wouldn't have it, we should start it right now to do it, because education is the thing which is the basis for everything, for not only the young generation. We have an institute in Germany, for instance, which is consecrated to lifelong learning. There's no age to learn something. And we all have, in these times, which seems to change quicker than times beforehand, we all have to learn all lifelong. So UNESCO works in different areas. Everybody knows the Patrimoine, the World Heritage Committee, and this is very important, and it's very nice as a brand as well, because everybody knows Notre Dame in Paris, or the Dome, the Cathedral in Cologne, or what else. But the most important thing for UNESCO is to work in the field of education. And if you would ask people in Lebanon or in Ethiopia about UNESCO, or in Bangladesh, everybody would tell you the most important thing is education. What can UNESCO do? And so I come to your question. In the field of education, and to give opportunities to students. First of all, to help. Our partners are always the states, the state member states of UNESCO. They come to us asking, how can we foster our educational system? And then the specialists of UNESCO here in Paris and in some institutes will tell them how they can approach. After COVID-19, I hope we can say after. I don't hope that we have another wave, but we are still in the midst of the COVID crisis in countries of the global south. So in Brazil or in India, it's long away from being over. We have to make sure that pupils and students are going back to school and university after COVID. There's a tendency that many parents, many fathers say, oh no, in the COVID crisis, our daughters that at home, and she doesn't have to go back to school. So this is the first thing, that we make sure that pupils and students go back to school and university. And it is not easy to do this. We have no power to give orders. But the nice thing and the unique thing about UNESCO is that we're working not only as an international organization with state parties as members, we have unique organizations via national committees of UNESCO. Each member state has, if it wants to become member of the UNESCO, to create a national UNESCO commission. And this commission is in between UNESCO in Paris, the government of the respective state, and the civil society. This is composed by people of these own countries, meaning they know their fellows, they know their country, and they have the direct approach via their contacts in government and in the civil society. So first answer, to make it short, is they have to go back to school. This is the most important thing. How can we tell students that education is a value, that it helps something? I think this is something everybody can tell young people, parents, teachers, friends, actors. Culture is important here. Actors and all kinds of artists can speak about the value of education, and only by education, the stupidness of people who just want to make war or are self-bound in a bloody nationalism can be freed to become free human beings. Educations mean to lead out of something. Educare. This is not something which the teachers are telling, and you have to take into your head as you put your soup in your mouth. It is about what is starting with you. You are in a position to be a free human being, and this is the nice, you may call it a naive but positivistic approach of UNESCO.
I think it's beautiful. It's the very most important, essential part of it. And this is actually the reason why I'm so happy to work for the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation. And I think we have many things in common, dear Peter. And it makes it always so beautiful to have a communication with you, because especially that what we have seen at the beginning of the week when I met you in Paris, which was so great. And thank you once again for this wonderful dialogue. And of course, you're right, I do agree. Just today, I had in my LinkedIn an information, what can we do? And that comes from the UNESCO. And every single day I see that. Now you see how important social media channels are. If I see that regularly, what happens in the UNESCO, and I get my newsletter, for example, and I know what you're doing in the next week. And that's why I said I'm so impressed that you are here. Well, to come back, first of all, is actually to make sure that the teacher are saying that the teacher can come back and, of course, to be there for the students. Actually, I'm coming to that, what I think is also this impressive. And by the way, you mentioned India, Lebanon, and so on. We had that problem also in Switzerland. We had that problem also in Germany. Do you remember? In this year of the corona pandemic, quasi-curricular training was not possible, as in previous years. Many students completed their training in a kind of a home office for a few months, having had the opportunity to perform the tasks of the teachers or of a teacher on the internet. But that should be also very difficult, as we have seen, because many families do not have such a prerequisite, such a possibility, such a commitment, or the diplomatic, the academic education, for example, to teach their children. And in school, for example, you have this analog lessons. This can perhaps be absorbed, but otherwise the inequality, the unequal conditions for a good education are obvious. I've seen that already. Giving guided tours with students and pupils and teacher, they came to me and said that they had these problems actually to come back because they have seen this, big décalage, the difference and that levels. And so honestly, people always said, what can we do to make sure that especially the primary school, the kids from the children from the primary school, they had to come back very early because they have already seen that there used to be difference in this. So my second question would be, how can we subvert definitely not our countries, but also and especially the third world countries in order to create condition for their students to be well educated? How can we create a more or less level playing field? Is this idea that I have maybe too naive, or is it maybe too illusory? Is it an illusion for me just to think about it, that we can do something? You mentioned before India, and it is not over yet with the corona pandemic situation. What can
I
we
hope,
do?
Kirsten, it is not. I hope it's no illusion. But in many areas of the world, I feel we have to start from the scratch. To have children at home with an internet in Germany and Switzerland and France is one thing. To have no teacher because maybe he died in Africa is different. If the only access to the world is a portable phone, not even a smartphone. So if there's television, you can have, like we used to have in the 70s, 80s, the television teaching, if you remember. But these are completely different conditions. So what we can do is to give ideas, to share our knowledge, to try to find solutions bespoken to those countries and their actual situation, and to, first of all, and most important, to keep the responsible there, what we call the ownership. This is very important. This is the biggest mistake we have done so many times, and we're again about to do it in development policy, to say we leave prefabricated solutions for every country, and this is always leading to nothing. So we have to get the ownership of the respective countries. We have to pay attention to the civil society, which might differ from one to the other countries in the same continent, and to help them to find this bespoken solution. No, it's not an illusion, Kirsten.
Thank you, dear. That's quite important for me to know, because as an art historian, of course, I have always my ideas, but I appreciate it all the time, especially in the last weeks, to have this, once again, this dialogue between the students, and they are also very critic, and they bring me further right now with this question. So that what I ask at you, the second question, is a question, by the way, that I heard from my students. So I prepared that also our interview asking them, because I think you have to take them seriously, the students. And so, well, during my studies, I had the good fortune, I should say, to spend some time studying abroad. Okay, for an art historian and a student in Italy as a French and Italian literature, it's quite necessary that you do so. But I mean, it's not self-evident, it's not granted, but I had this chance. The student exchange program Erasmus, I won't forget that, in Freiburg, for example, or let's say the academic exchange service, the DAAD, for example, in Germany, always come to my mind. Exchange between pupils and students as a whole is a very important basis for cultural exchange, according to me. I don't know if you agree, because I think when I have students, for example, from the United States or from China or wherever you name it, and I go with them to the museum, our lingua franca, of course, is English, right? Well, as far as I can, that we reach each other. But which is most impressive is that they react immediately. They see a painting, and which I always love that much is to see how they interact. For example, someone coming from Japan or from China sees something completely different in a portrait than a European student, and that's something I really appreciate a lot. I don't know what you say about that cultural exchange.
You spoke out of my heart, as one says. The idea from Germany, Erasmus in Europe, I think are perfect programs, and I think they have changed the world, the European world at least. Maybe sometimes Erasmus is too short, just one semester, half a year somewhere, and just speaking English, even if you're in Italy or in Spain, is a pity. So I think this is good. This is very good to send young people and to make them curious for other societies. But I think one could even optimize this program by giving a bit more length and a bit more depth in it. By the way, I want to say that we created a Erasmus Pro in the meantime. It's not only for students and universities. You can, in the dual system, you can go to as a student if you're a butcher or a baker or something like this. You can exchange within European countries as well. And why, if you're in bakery, why shouldn't as a Swiss baker, why shouldn't you learn in Paris how to do the baguette? If you're a butcher in Appenzell, why shouldn't you go to learn how people in Italy or in France cut the beef? I think everything which helps to see yourself from the outside. And where did I start to feel as a German? Of course, abroad, because in my generation it was not so common to feel very German at home. But if you're abroad, the first, the better. You feel that you're German or European, or where the differences are, and why not. So yeah, this is the most important thing. And this is not only to learn things like in school. This is to learn for life. And nobody comes back from Erasmus here or from a student year abroad the same he was when he started.
I can see that, if I may say that personally, right now with my daughter Anne-Sophie. She doesn't want to come back. You know that. I already told you about that. She loves to be in Spain, and I have a beautiful lady here, and she agrees with that, of course. It's so amazing. Now, but honestly, I mean, this is something you won't forget, as you said, and I do agree immediately. Absolutely, you won't forget that, and that's something. We have this long, rich European tradition, and I won't forget our Willem Hausenstein. Do you remember when he said, so he felt also this black forest in himself, even if he were far, far away. Very good. Now, my third question, dear Peter, is as the German ambassador to UNESCO, and of course, looking back to your professional past, how do you see the cultural exchange of students? You already said that to me, right? That it is very necessary to do so, and that they have to have their experience if they have the chance. I mean, this is sometimes you can't. I mean, it's also depending about the financial situation. I have many students who would like to be abroad, but they don't have the chances to do so. And always thinking, what can I do? What can I give them as an advice to do so? Because I think it is so important, as you said before, to be abroad.
Yeah, sure. You want me to say something more about it?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, it costs money, but somebody who really wants nowadays to go for a semester abroad in Europe, thanks to the programs of Erasmus, can do it. This was some 30 years ago not the case, because it's not only the courage, the courage to go somewhere. It costed a lot of money. Of course, it costs a lot of work still today, but if you want to do it, I think today you can do it. And this changed a lot. This is different to students coming from China, first of all, to the United Kingdom, but to countries on the continent as well. They have a culture where education is only seen important if it costs a lot, if you go to Cambridge or to Oxford. And they're sent by their parents because for the national prestige, for the private prestige of the family, it's important to send their children in outside. There's no sense if you stay together with only your fellow countrymen, and if you come from China and you stay only with Chinese people, and you do your tests, and then you go back. So therefore I'm always saying, no, it's not only what you learn within university, it's what you learn outside of university as well in this important phase of your life.
Well, that gives hope, of course, and that gives also hope for me because of my next question that I would like to ask you. At the moment, a lot of thought is being given to equal opportunities. You remember that we had that in Paris, this discussion, and you said, yeah, it is a very important topic. Now, only today I had a beautiful quotation, and you know that I really like to speak about Simone Weil, and she said that. And by the way, there was also a quotation that you had on your LinkedIn of UNESCO, and that's why I was already attentive. And just to remember, she was the health minister. I think she is best remembered for her advancing women legal rights in this. Simone Weil, who lived from 1927 to 2017. She was French magistrate, stateswoman, health minister, and president of the European Parliament from 1979 to 1982. And she was the first woman to hold this office. And now I would like to quote that in French, of course, because it's her mother tongue. Ma revendication en tant que femme, ce que ma différence soit prise en compte, que soit passionnante, de m'adopter au modèle masculin. Tu te rappelles? You remember that? So that she said that really this, can I say, signification of being a woman and not even, I don't know, you know, I mean, it's just dedicated to something else. So that is something, that's why I think we have those exhibition, Contre Femmes, that's why we have those exhibition, Sophie Teuber, Abstraction, Living Abstraction. So my question, for example, and it goes also to this direction, I mangle this a little bit, there's still the idea, the cliche that girls are less talented than their boys of the same age, for example, in the natural sciences. And with my ladies who are here right now, we had this discussion last week, by the way. And so I may ask you, and sorry for this question, but this is also as a mother bothering me sometimes. Is there a possibility to prepare young people for this already in school education, or to give them an awareness of this, that there is, I mean, it's not a question of being a girl or a boy, having exactly an idea for natural sciences, for example.
Okay, thank you, Kerstin. First of all, I want to start that UNESCO has two priority junctions. And all what we are doing is doing with these classes on gender and Africa. So this is for us very important part of our work. To your precise question about how can we incite girls to natural sciences, what we call STEM, science, technology, and then how STEM or I think after 16 years of Angela Merkel, we shouldn't ask the question. She is a physician of training, 16-year chancellor of the federal government, and she did everything to invite girls, even the chancellery, but to have this Girls' Day once a year, that girls can come and have confronted, especially with natural sciences. Because she says, as you said, it's not natural that girls are panicking. There's no reason why they shouldn't go to technical professions or to natural sciences. So it takes a long way, and we do not want to force neither girls who don't want to do it, but to give them the tableau of possibilities, what they could do. This, I think, it's very important. So I think it's a combination. It was not seen as natural for girls. So if you go to the Technical University in Darmstadt or in Aix-la-Chapelle in Aachen, you won't see a lot of girls. But we do not want to force them either, but we want to give them in the school, and that's what you said, in the school already the picture that yes, it is possible. And look at this as well. There are no girlish or boyish topics. Everything is open to everyone.
It's true. Mm-hmm. I'm very happy to hear that, because of course that is basically a discussion that we have in different schools already. In addition, there's something completely else. We spoke already about that. It's not only the education of pupils and students, but we both, you and me, we also spoke very often about the collective participation and culture in music and literature and politics and history in connection with this situation, the Corona situation that we had. And the director of the Museum of Fine Arts once said that the collection is a kind of an archive. It's a collective memory. Mm-hmm. Now, you told me on the occasion of my last interview that I had with Dr. Anna Erath, medical doctor and an ambassador of the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation. You said that to me, culture is not a luxury product, remember, but an integral part of what we do, you said. It is part of our daily life. No one should be excluded from it. That was your quotation, and I had that in my mind when I had this interview with Anna Erath. Basically, the content of the 27th article, everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts and to share human rights. So my question would be, dear Peter, what do you think UNESCO can do to help implement this article?
Artists suffered under COVID more than others because, bifold, they suffered financially because they couldn't earn money. This is a very basic thing, except those in some countries, like in Germany and Switzerland as well, some musicians are in a status which is close to a civil servant. But let's not forget, the most of them, they didn't earn anything. And the second way of suffering is not to be on stage. An artist, an actor, and musician want to perform. And he was not in a position for more than a year to do what his life dream, where he can become better and what's important for him. So UNESCO is trying with several programs to help artists through very different possibilities to enhance the possibility of the governments to help them and to underline that what you said by quoting me, culture is not the cherry of a cake of a well situated society. It's not that you have your house, your car, your I don't know what you want to have, and then you can start to buy culture. No, process in your head, seeing an exhibition of paint to a concert or do other cultural things should start working something in your head. And this is culture. And therefore, culture is a necessity like water and bread for us, for to be human beings.
But I remember this interview, that podcast that you had with Claudia Roth, and I was very fascinated by that. And only yesterday I hear that once again, and I'm very grateful to have it. Exactly. We suffered also, but not in this specific manner. We have to say art historians, they had always the possibility to write, to publish, and so on. We had something to do. We were not sitting at home doing nothing. But what we missed a lot, of course, were the questions, the reactions of the people. And you know how much I love to communicate, to interact with the people. And that was something. And then we thought about this alternatives with this, can I say, digital format like Zoom guided tours or sort of Instagram 15 minutes introduction, but that was nothing in comparison, of course, to have real analog dialogue. Okay, we are right now also talking by Zoom, but we had at
we learned a
least...
lot. We learned a lot that we can have conferences now on Zoom or other conference things. We learned a lot that we don't have to travel for every little thing. We can speak like this, and this is a nice thing in between. Better than the phone, and not as nice to sit at your table, but we learned this. World, I think, will changed after COVID. Some of us stay better at home to work. Others cannot do it at all. I think we have to accept both things. I think it is still necessary to travel, to see each other, to see the world as well. But on the other hand side, you have the technology nowadays, and we have the practice as well, how we can discuss among others. So many things we have to take some positive lessons out of COVID as well. And this could be one, for instance. Yes.
Well, that's what Anna and me also said last time in our interview. We learned that we had the chance to be more creative. We had to live with the situation, hadn't had another alternative. So we had to find out what to do. And as you said, okay, it's even better than talking by phone. At least I can see you. Which is also very good. No, but actually, yeah, I think we learned to live about it, but nobody knew about the situation. And if you had told me, I don't know, 1 year or 2 years ago, we will have a coronavirus, then I would have said, nay, definitely not in the 21st century, my, developed as we are. I mean, now I know that I was too naive to think in this direction, honestly. But yeah,
I think we all have been very naive a year and a half ago. We couldn't imagine that such a thing. There was a long report for every German member of the Bundestag or the Parliament about what could happen in such a crisis. And you know what they said? That said there could be something like influenza coming from the southeast of Asia, spreading rapidly all over the world, with a cough and with fever. So it's crazy. They already saw what came, and some scientific people said it as well. So we had this booklet in the German Bundestag, and in the end of this report it was written, the chance for such a crisis to happen is 1 to 1 million. Well, if you're a member of parliament and you have a construction site in your circumscription, and you have this to do, and you have to vote for the prolongation of soldiers in Mali or something, you don't read this report where you have the possibility of 1 to 1 million. So everybody had it, but nobody read it. But the moment the crisis started, at least we had people who knew what you can do in such a situation. And well, many critics have been made how we reacted, but don't forget, we didn't have anything. We didn't know about the vaccines against it, and in a very short period we have this quite effective vaccines now.
That's very true. But you said on Monday, you told me, wait a minute, I'm sure we'll have also the third vaccination. Do you remember? That's what you said. And I guess you're right. Now, well, all hope all for the best. Keep our fingers crossed, and that we can go further on and having a wonderful communication as we have it right now. During the preparation of our interview in Paris earlier this week, you explained that the human rights are indivisible, right? He said that to me, and that they are definitely not an Occidental invention, and that one should not confuse them with the signification of the cultural diversity, a very, very important topic. May I kindly ask you, as someone who worked since many, 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 many years for the protection of the human rights, to explain this very important statements, dear Peter?
Yes, yes, it's a pleasure. Of course, the different human rights declaration, which we have, those from 48, but from the French Revolution, from the Declaration of Independence of the United States, even before the from Virginia. This is fruit of the movement of the Enlightenment, and you may call it European. But if you look around in the world, why don't you take the ideas of the Sufis in Iran, or from educated Muslim universities like in Cairo, with forward-looking thinking in this direction. By the way, the actual Declaration of Human Rights, written after the Second World War, was with contribution by many people from many continents, from Europe, from America, but from India as well, and from China, and from Arab countries. Many philosophers and statesmen contributed to this declaration, which is, of course, a compromise. Already then, the Soviet Union and the member states of the then later on Warsaw Pact, they were very skeptical and didn't want to have the individual human rights. They looked more to collective human rights, like right to development and things like this. But what we have there is a set of course, in the beginning, non-binding human rights. We made them by international law binding with two sets of legislation, both for civic and for social rights in the 60s. And there's something our predecessors created international legislation, and they changed the international public law, which is quite something. This gives us the right to react if human rights abuses are happening elsewhere. The other thing is, do we want to say something? Do we have the strength to do so? Politics is always a balance between national interests and values, and I can only hope that the values will be the most important thing, without being the one who want to teach others, but to remember others to what they are obliged to do. This is indivisibility, universality of human rights, and what you said with the diversity of culture. This is a different thing. This is a very nice thing, and UNESCO has many programs on cultural diversity. This is something, of course, we have to work on. This we don't want to have one monopolized cultural life all over the world. Unfortunately, Hollywood or other phenomena are leading to such an idea of uniformism in the world. But this is something people have to remember as well. Why is it so beautiful to have different cultures? Because they have different origins, they have different experiences, and they have to give something to others. But this is a long way, especially to teach this to young people who seem to me a bit streamlined sometimes nowadays.
But that brings me to the fact that you asked me at the beginning of this year, and I was really impressed, according to the stained glass windows. You remember that? And I have to find out a German artist, promise, for you. This idea.
Yeah, this is to explain to those who listen to our conversation. The UNESCO want to inscribe in the immaterial World Heritage the glass, the mouth-blown glass. And this is, of course, Murano. Everybody knows Venice for this, but they exist as well in Bohemia, in Germany, and in France. And I would like to make a little exhibition here in Paris in the context of this inscription.
I will ask Urs Rickenbach. Promised. I think so. Because that's what you mentioned right now, the immaterial heritage. You spoke about that Weltkulturerbe. Every single guided tour, Gerhard Richter, I mentioned the Kölner Dom, of course, because of this wonderful 2007 dedicated stained glasses by this German expressive artist. And it is impressive. But I mean, more impressive, or I was more impressed actually, to what did you say about the dancers, about the puppet play, and all that stuff, because all those beautiful variations, because this is also kind of richness that we don't forget that. And I'm sorry if I may say so, folkloristical ideas, Sophie Teuber also had a source of inspiration because of that.
So it did, sure. It's not up to us to judge on quality, whether it's folkloristic or cultural. This is, no, we should not know. Everything which attracts people and make people think and make people happy is worth it, of course.
And that's so great that you said that. And it is a nice end of our talk. It has to go on and on and on all during the years, I hope. But it gives me also the possibility right now to repeat these questions that we have right now in the chat. Can you comment on the current discussion on gender language? Oh, that's something we also spoke about it. Do you remember that on Monday?
No. Sure, we have agenda is of utmost importance for UNESCO, of course, because this is a topic. Why would UNESCO not seize it? I have a meeting, by the way, tonight with a newly appointed gender director in UNESCO, and yes, we discuss a lot about language, and I think everybody has to pay attention to make clear in his language, in her language, that we're thinking about all sexes. Personally, I think we shouldn't overdo it, but this is a personal taste, because sometimes there's a lack of clearness, which is very important as well. The French Minister of Culture and the French Minister of Education said the French language is already too complicated for all the foreigners to whom we suggest to learn French. We don't want to complicate it even more. But it's not whether we need a gender balanced language with Asterix or with a stop in our pronunciation. The thing is that we speak about it, and when we all know what is important, then it's the less important thing to change language. I think it's a bit exaggerated what I read from some German and others scientists who want to eliminate a lung. Even if you ask in German wer to say who, they want to eliminate it because in the WER you have ER like air, which is masculine. I think keep the ball down. This is we should not exaggerate. There's always things you can exaggerate. But anyway, this is an important topic, and to make clear and to give this anchorage in people's mind that they have to pay attention. Discrimination is not only female and male discrimination, as we have now this movement woke, Black Lives Matters. Yes. I think if we want to be more mindful with each other, it's everywhere. It's not only racial discrimination or sexual discrimination. It can be everywhere. So the good thing would be to be a bit more mindful.
I do agree. Now, what are UNESCO's biggest current challenges?
The biggest challenge which we're discussing right now, and we we on a good way is the recommendation on ethics in artificial intelligence. This is language which is extremely important. Of course, there are other academics or the European Union or OECD, they have ideas to this topic as well. But don't forget, UNESCO is 193 member states. If 193 member states, including Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, China, can find one language on such an important topic, I think this is already something. This is not the end of the world. The discussion goes on, but the contribution made by UNESCO is enormous, huge, and changes this discussion in international platforms. Artificial intelligence is boon and bane, as they say. You can do wonderful things with artificial intelligence, but what I read the other day in the Swiss newspaper, Neue Zürcher Zeitung, about the ideas of some schools in China where you can know whether pupils are concentrated or not only in school, but when they have to do their homework as well. This is crazy. This opens the door for a sort of totalitarianism, which nobody, neither Stalin nor Hitler ever could dream of. And this is very dangerous. So ethics is very important.
You could guess that I'm very anxious about that. That's exactly what my anxieties about that. Now I have another question to you, Peter. Do you have still the time to answer question?
Yeah.
Thank you, dear. How can we protect children's education during and after war?
Yeah, education. Did I read after war?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that depends on the war. If the war is like in Afghanistan or like the Second World War in Germany, this depends whether the society before the war was a society with an educational system, or whether it's a country in development. So if you go to Tigray in Ethiopia or to Kiev in Congo, or if you go to the north of Afghanistan, the situation is definitely different than the situation was after World War II in Germany or in France or in Great Britain. So it depends very much on the actual situation.
I do agree. There is another very important question. Culture is often seen as something elitist. How can we change that? That it is not, as you said, it's not a luxury product. That's what we said before, right?
You speak. Thank you for this question. Of course, some kinds of arts are elitist. To distinguish the way of conducting of Sergio Celibidache and Thomas Hengelbrock is something for the refined ears. But we do not want to discriminate the fine ears either. So we have to give them the chance as well. And we have to develop our senses to this way. And we have to learn from this people. This is very important. But I think we have to democratize arts. There's a nice project I spoke the other day with a young founder of a movement in Lebanon called Art in Motion, which means we have to democratize it. The most elitist of the art festivals is known as the Salzburg Festival. Of course, yeah, that's a bit. It's expensive to go there. There's the best quality of things, but listen, there's on the square in front of the cathedral, there's a big screen sponsored by a big company from Munich, and everybody can go there and listen at the very same moment as the premiere of La Traviata or whatever they sing there, can go there with a picnic basket and have the same fun as people who pay 200 or 300 euros for a ticket. So this is a way to democratize culture without taking something away from the quality approach you have in arts. So democratization should focus to acceptance and to there's a possibility to go there, instead of saying, no, this is only for the happy few and it's too expensive. No, this is not the good way. There are things where you have to pay attention. In Paris, they tried to move the biggest the Philharmonie to the north east side of the city, which is a nice idea, because from an urbanistic point of view, you cannot focus everything in the very center of the city. But it leads to quite funny side effect, which is not nice, that people from the area anyway don't go there, except to go there by skateboard, because the Jean Nouvel architecture is very nicely done for skateboard sport drivers. And many other people from Paris, from the 16th arrondissement, they say it's too long, too dangerous, too complicated to go there. We prefer to go to other theaters. So the idea and the concrete life should come together to have a good solution.
Well, I do agree, because of the Opera House in Zurich. They did that, I mean, before the coronavirus, of course. We had those beautiful events, and you can tell people were sitting there having their picnic, and people, they told me, I'm sorry, those who love to hear, and I also do, Celibidache. I never ever will forget that with Michael Link together. That was amazing, amazing, amazing. You won't forget that. But I mean, those people, they said to me, dear Kirsten, and we enjoyed also being together, having this collective participation that we spoke about.
Yeah.
Have we got another question? It's 7 o'clock already, dear. Brings me to the point that I have something to say. And I read those, and then we are doing that together. So I have one question. Freedom, well, it's a statement, and then we have to think about it. Freedom is a fundamental human right, but those who express and act freely are marginalized, and their freedom is now useless. Well, according to the freedom, I only can say that this is definitely something very important for many, many, many artists. I already mentioned them today. You remember Dan Rowe, We the People. We remember, of course, Kadratja. We remember also Kara Walker. I mean, of course, this is a very important topic always for the artist. I don't know, what do you say, dear Peter, about that? But I mean, that's something we always could see that in art. I mean, not only in the contemporary art, by the way, also in something else.
I think in this statement is a pessimism which I do not share. I think, yes, of course, freedom is the most important human right which exists. Freedom for is the word for human dignity. Freedom is what enables us to work as human beings and to express ourselves. And we have this freedom only if we fight for it with ourselves as well every day. To be creative, to develop, to do something needs your freedom in your mind, and the biggest enemy of your personal freedom is your own mind.
Very true. I do agree. And there is something else. One of the fundamental human rights is the prohibition of slavery. Well, we spoke already about that. I mean, the symbol of freedom extends slavery. It's exactly, if you think about the Statue of Liberty, you have this broken ten, of course, of it. Then as Sophocles the ancient trilogy said, loans enslave people, banks, for example, give, and then the one who will not be able to repay becomes a slave. Right, and the human rights forbid slavery because it violates human rights, sort of. But we already spoke about that, about art, and I think, in my opinion, I can't adjust something else about that. We have seen that with this contemporary artist. I don't know if you would like to adjust EMP to something I haven't said yet.
I have to to say I don't understand properly the question, but slavery, of course, is something we hate a lot today. There's modern slavery, by the way. We have to pay attention to that. There's modern slavery in some societies which are progressing enormously due to human slavery. And so slavery is not something of the 19th century or the centuries before this. It's not limited to the African continent. Slavery exists, and this is crime against humanity, definitely. Speaking about Sophocles, I think it's always fascinating and sad that the greatest thinker before and after Platon and Socrates were accepting without any problem that they were living in slavery society. And in Roman times, Greek people were made slaves. Normally more literate than their masters. So this is an amazing story. So, but we should not blame our ancestors, because we don't know how they thought, and we don't think from their perspectives. Other people will judge us maybe in a different way for what we have done today.
And that's exactly, that brings me to the end of our talk, remembering the future, right? So still Kadratja, and once you are in Zurich, I really would like to show you these beautiful works. It's not beautiful, but it evocates interesting questions. I'm looking forward to that you're coming to Zurich, that I can show you this, right?
Yeah.
And
thank you.
Thank you once again.
Let me say thank you very much again for the kind invitation. I enjoyed very much this discussion. I want to thank to all people who ask questions, because it's always an inspiration for us as well. And and today I will speak with the director of gender question of UNESCO, and we are working on this, maybe assured. Thank you, Kerstin. Take good care of yourself.
Same to you, likewise. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And for all the others, I really would like to give a great thank you to Stephanie Egger and to Claudia Sardanes, because without the ladies, I wouldn't have had the technical help for everything and for the Zoom conferences. So, thank you very much, dear ladies.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody who joined us.